Broadcasting live from our studio in Boston with presentations from prominent industry vendors, Solutions Review presents Data Demo Day, an online event for data management and analytics.
I'm Doug Atkinson here at Solutions Review, and welcome to Data Demo Day. For this edition, we brought together 4 of the hottest data and analytics solutions coming out of Silicon Valley. First up is Sigma Computing. And what you'll see today is a different kind of business intelligence tool. Sigma delivers a cloud analytics solution with a spreadsheet-like interface that enables anyone to explore data at cloud scale and speed. The Sigma Analytics platform capitalizes on the power of cloud data warehouses to combine data sources and analyze billions of rows of data instantly. No coding required. Sigma automates workflows and balances data access and data governance to make self-service data exploration available to everyone, all in real time. And to walk us through the Sigma Computing platform is Dylan Morrison, Director of Product Management, and Zach Norton, Technical Product Marketing Manager. Gentlemen, thanks for being with us.
And thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Well, I'll tell you what, I've been looking forward to this Data Demo Day for a while now. It's a great lineup, and I'm thrilled to have you guys be a part of it. Before we get going, and I know you have a lot to show and a short time to do it, Dylan, I see your background is pretty amazing for having worked at Looker for 8 years and now you're at Sigma Computing. Tell us a little bit about what gets you excited about data.
Yeah, so I mean, there's always new things going on in the data space, which is really exciting. There's always a lot of innovation. Something lately that has got me really excited is thinking about how we can really innovate on the user experience side. You know, there's so much advancement that's happened in the last decade around the databases we're using, the backend technology that we're using, a lot of the foundational work that helps analytics move so quick nowadays and helps us process such large amounts of data. But where I still think there's a lot of room for innovation is on the front end. Like, how do we create the right types of UIs and UXs to really help any common person get value out of all of the data that exists in your business? And that's one of the things that was so exciting about Sigma to me was the application of a spreadsheet-like interface on top of these massive data sets. So, Excel is arguably one of the best BI tools ever made, and I think we don't want to recreate the wheel in terms of interface. So let's give something to our users that they're already familiar with.
Yeah, and ultimately that's why we're here, right? Is to show the innovation that's happening in this space. Zach, tell us a little bit about kind of where you're coming from with regard to where you are in Sigma and where you are in the data space as well.
Yeah, so I'm a technical product marketing manager, former a Sigma solution engineer, and I come from even more legacy companies than Looker. I'm former IBM and Oracle. So what excites me today is to really leave all that on-premise baggage behind and really start fresh in the cloud.
Outstanding. Well, let me just set expectations for our audience. So I'm going to turn it over to these guys to really get in and share the Sigma Computing solution. If you have any questions, please submit them. We'll hold them till the end of the half hour and go through as many as we can. We certainly want to let these guys have enough room to present the whole platform. For that, though, I'm going to turn it over to Zach, and I'm going to let you take it from here, Zach, and I'll catch up with you guys in 20 minutes or so.
All right. So I promise not to spend too much time in slideware, but I want to kind of level set just where Sigma fits into the modern BI stack. And full disclosure, I'm already sharing a Sigma workbook. This is a Google slide embedded in a workbook where I have other tabs, much like Excel, that are a little bit more transaction focused, others that are a little bit more like traditional dashboards. But where I'm going to start is just a few slides for where business works with data. We're saying it's going to be Sigma, and a quick agenda. So I'm going to give an intro, walk through a demo of the product live, and then we'll circle back for Q&A that Dylan can answer pretty much anything under the sun when it comes to where Sigma fits in the modern BI stack, where we differentiate against other tools like Looker or Power BI. Really want to take advantage of the live Q&A that we have today. But high level, Four major points about Sigma and who we are, why we exist. So we're a next-gen cloud analytics tool for the modern data stack. Now, I swear that word salad actually means something. So when I say next-gen cloud analytics, what I mean is we don't have any on-premise baggage like I was referring to before. There is nowhere in a data center in some company that there is a Sigma appliance or anything that has to be installed on-premise. We have always been the cloud because we always wanted to take advantage of the innovations that have happened there in terms of elasticity, scale, and compute. What we further differentiate with is a intuitive spreadsheet-like experience. So about 7 million people are estimated to know SQL. That's great, they can use Sigma too. But 1 billion people are more familiar with spreadsheets. So we wanted to create a platform that could blend both skill sets and make sure that both those users could meet and be able to collaborate real time. That's something I'll be able to demonstrate with Dylan today. Another point, we are oftentimes complementary to existing investments because we are cloud data focused. We're kind of skating to where we think the data puck's going to be. So when your data lands in a cloud data platform like Databricks, BigQuery, Redshift, Postgres in the cloud, we want to be there for be able to complement your existing pre-built reports. And a little bit about our background, we're brought to you by the same people that brought you Snowflake. So Mike Spicer, original CEO of Snowflake, Sutter Hill Ventures. After he went ahead and IPO'd Snowflake, had a big win there for reinventing cloud data warehouses. He's trying to figure out what his next bet's going to be. So why not cloud analytics, but maybe I could connect to Snowflake, BigQuery, Databricks, a wide variety of cloud data warehouses. He's a smart guy. He's diversifying his portfolio. So he grabbed Rob Woolen and Jason France, our founders, and they invented Sigma. So the Sigma workbook is the interface that connects live to cloud data platforms. So similar to Dylan's experience at Looker, it's a direct query tool. We do not move or persist any of the data into another platform because we figure you went through all this work, all these security reviews, so let's inherit that security and governance that you've put in place on the cloud data platform and allow users to build dashboards and visualizations. They build them with a familiar spreadsheet experience where they can do all their traditional pivot tables and calculations that they're oftentimes exporting onto on-premise tools like Excel. They can drill anywhere to follow that data, be able to stay live on it, governed. And when we talk about following the data in real time, that means that it's billions of rows live in that warehouse. So we're not capped at that million row limit that is traditionally found within Excel or even the maybe billion row limit for traditional BI tools because we can roll with that scale and compute of the cloud data platform. And one last point, all elements that I show today are embeddable via iframe. Important strategy for a lot of our 500 customers is they want to take their cloud data and monetize it. So they need to embed it for their clients, or they build successful portals that they want to hand off to their business users in Salesforce or within other internal platforms. So without further ado, I'm going to move into the platform and show you 4.5 million transactions live. So this is the spreadsheet-like interface where I can look at the data and really get a feel for it without having to write any additional SQL code. Because like I was saying, we're not moving the data. What's happening here is Sigma is issuing machine-generated SQL code that's getting pushed down to the cloud data warehouse, and then we return it in browser. So we can also leverage security tunnels like private link, so even this metadata doesn't go over the public internet. Now, if I look at something like product type, product name, we're going to start with a retail data set just because everybody shopped in a store like Target or a Best Buy. And this might be how they break down their actual product hierarchy, that there's the actual product family. I'm profiling the 4.5 million rows to get a feel for the distribution, as well as product name. So even if it's a billion rows, Sigma is going to profile, get a feel for the actual distinct value. So if there is one product line with one line item in a billion row data set, we're going to be able to show you the actual results. Now, I'm going to grab a few different columns here and just show you some work that I can do on a Sigma table. So let's say if I work on the product type and I want to look at the product name, and I'm pretty used to using our hotkeys, but what I'm doing here is just right clicking and selecting to group column. And I'm going to show you one of those Excel-like calculations. So I'm going to grab a sum of the revenue, or actually call this sum of sales, and that will be my revenue. Now at a higher level, I can do another Excel-like calculation. So in this column, I'm going to do an average of that revenue. And if you hear a buzzing noise, that's because this is our brand new New York office, and there's still some construction going on, but I'm gonna just kind of power through it, so just bear with me. But I'm gonna add a quick calculation here. So this is something that's actually very tricky to do within other traditional BI tools that you typically have to write something like MDAX or LookML or a level of detail calculation within a tool like Tableau, now under Salesforce. But within Sigma, it's as simple as just grabbing one column and dividing by one at a higher level of granularity. And I can calculate what is my percent of average across that 1,000 rows. But I'm going to unwind this table real quick and show you what the typical use case is for presenting this data for business users. Because the age-old dilemma of traditional BI is, even though this data has been cleaned up, a lot of people have put effort into it, the business user is still going to ask, why can't I just go ahead and download it into Excel? So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to drop this into a pivot table, because that's 9 times out of 10 why they are going to export a stale copy onto their desktop is they want to do their pivots. So I'm going to outfox them here by setting up a pivot table on the actual store region. I'm going to grab the date column, truncate that down to year. You can see the skeleton of the pivot table is already queued up for me. I'm going to let the business users know that they are going to be able to drill anywhere. And I just need one value to fill it out, add a little conditional formatting. And this is something I can now hand over to somebody like Dylan or somebody like Doug, and they can just onboard immediately, because all you need to know within Sigma is that you can right click and drill anywhere. So from a store region down to a store state. And I don't have to just keep going down geospatially or down a product hierarchy. I can go from store region to store state to store city, and then turn left and go into something like a product family name. So all this stays live, governed in the warehouse. This is operations on top of amounts of data that would really clog up your Excel workflow. You might have to shatter it into a few different Excel workbooks and then build a macro to put it back together. But here it stays live, governed in the cloud data warehouse. And the onboarding was just a matter of taking the spreadsheet skills I already had and then transposing it into a SaaS platform. So I did not have to pre-plan my drill path. And I can even open this up for something that no other BI tool can do. Because let's say I have data, I'm a business user, I have some epiphany that I want to add for product family about what I think is going to happen within those product lines. Maybe an idea of which way I want to forecast these different product family details. So I can actually grab some of the details here, and I'm going to copy them to my clipboard. And this is a point where no other tool can do this, as far as I know, within the BI space, and also keep everything governed in a warehouse. Because I'm going to add what we call input tables and copy and paste those product families into my new forecast analysis. These are my product family. Everything I've been showing you until now has been more on a columnar basis, that I've been grouping on columns, I've been pivoting on columns, but a lot of times there has to be cell level detail that needs to be added, like forecast percentages like 1.3, 1.2, do 1.1 here. And same as I would within Excel, I can still just grab these and copy and paste. So wrapping up one more, maybe I don't think MP3s are going to come back in 2024. I'm a little skeptical about refurbished MP3 selling. So I can add in these forecast details. It's going to write back to a sandbox schema within my cloud data platform, still completely governed. And I can select my pivot table and actually add those new inputs via lookup. So lookup, very much like Excel, we're using the same language of analysis that spreadsheet users are used to. I'm adding the forecast. There's a match. In this Excel-like column, I have the option to still add additional calcs to say, well, let's multiply that by the sum of sales. And this will be my FY24 forecast. So right here, what I've done is taken 4.5 million rows, put them into a pivot table that business users are familiar with, and then shown how the business user themselves can add additional detail that they have top of mind, do a spreadsheet-like lookup, and all scale governed within a cloud warehouse. Now, before I run out of time, I do want to show we have more traditional dashboards. And this is where a live collaboration can come in incredible use. So you might have noticed Dylan has a little icon here. And I can actually just shout him out on the same workbook and say, Dylan, can I get a map of cost for the United States? So that's going to kick off an alert to Dylan, and he can navigate to the same workbook, and we can collaborate in real time. So if you're familiar with like Google Sheets, Google Slides, Google Docs especially, that it makes it very easy to be able to come in and work on the same document and make edits, be able to collaborate, and not have to worry about working in separate silos that you can't combine together. So I can see there's Dylan, he's in the same workbook. He's building out a store state visualization for me. And even while he's doing that, I have the option to add text. I would say super psyched for this new visualization. And there we have it. There's the United States. And once we get an actual value on here, this is sum of price. Looks like California has one of the higher costs of living when it comes to this retail store. And then Dylan just hit publish. So you have a draft. It doesn't necessarily have to go immediately live for production, but you don't have the age-old problem of out-of-date Excel workbooks on your desktop, or multiple different extracts into traditional BI tools, or those extracts and governance policies where you are working on multiple different versions of visualizations or dashboards, and then you have to figure out some way to merge all the teams' work in together. Dylan, how easy was it for you to come into this workbook?
Yeah, thanks, Zach. Super easy to do, really quick to create the visualization, as you saw right there. And I think one of the reasons that collaboration is so important in business intelligence is that every user has different context about the data. Some folks like Zach, yourself, are going to know what we should be forecasting at right here. Some folks like myself might understand how our executives want to see all this information displayed on a dashboard. So each of us can bring the business context that we have to the data and make it really accessible and usable for everyone else in our organization.
So even that forecast, I can add live text to other elements and other pages of the workbook, immediately have them here that we want to pop this on top and then publish. Great, thank you, Dylan. Get live on this workbook. And one more thing before we move into Q&A is, although we have a very easy onboarding strategy because it's so spreadsheet focused, it's so easy to connect to these warehouses and get started. We even have templates pre-built for very predictable data sets, like a Salesforce opportunity table, or in the case of Snowflake, we might want to deploy a template on top of the usage schema and track billing summary, contract monitoring. All this is very easy to deploy on top of cloud data warehouses without a huge background in data engineering or even traditional analytics. But our last line of defense, and one of the things that can't neglect to bring up, is that we have incredible support. So we have live chat. You can set up time with our actual support engineers or just send them a message and they're always happy to hop on and address a question. So they have seen just about everything that can possibly go sideways with a Sigma function bar, or what things people typically want to recreate from their either traditional BI workbooks or dashboards or their spreadsheets on their desktops. So got to shout out our support engineering team, our award-winning support engineering team. I think with that, I have one last slide that I wanted to touch upon. I go back to my recents. Because I do want to plug what is coming up in terms of our next webinars. Here we go. Next steps. So if you go to www.sigmacomputing.com, you can sign up for a trial, connect to our sample database, or if you do have a cloud data warehouse, you can connect to one of those. With that sample database, you can even upload CSVs to work with some of your own data. And beyond that free trial, we have hands-on labs every month. We also have a Sigma versus Looker webinar and a March 2nd webinar focusing on all of our embedded capability. But with that, let's move over into Q&A.
Well, Zach, I appreciate during that presentation you mentioning that it's so easy, even I might be able to use it. Because honestly, I was looking at that interface and I was like, yeah, I could definitely do this. I mean, I consider myself a spreadsheet ninja. So yeah, I like that very much. And oh, by the way, with regard to learning more about Sigma, I mean, obviously go to sigmacomputing.com, but there's a lot of stuff on Solutions Review as well that we're covering around Sigma, and we would encourage you to check out anything that we have too. With regard to some questions, we do have a few. I'm just going to read them verbatim, and we'll sort through them. The first one is, does Sigma ingest or hold data?
I can take that one. So no, Sigma doesn't actually ingest or hold any of your data. Everything that Zach was showing you just now were actually live queries being issued against a database. So Sigma pushes down machine-generated SQL to whatever your data warehouse is, and then we just return those results in the browser.
Easy enough. Succinct. Another question about cloud data warehouses, obviously a quality question. Which ones can Sigma connect to?
Sure. Yeah. So a lot of the big ones, Snowflake, BigQuery, Databricks. We also do Postgres and Redshift, and then I believe Alloy DB as well.
Nice. We have one here on limits to the number of rows or columns Sigma can analyze.
No. So Sigma is just operating directly on your warehouse tables, so it'll scale as large as your tables are. We have customers that have tables with tens of billions of rows, and some have, even up to thousands of columns. I don't know if I'd recommend making tables that big, but Sigma can certainly handle it if you do.
Right, right. With regard to embedding Sigma, can Sigma be embedded?
Yep, Sigma can be embedded as well. You can drop it as an iframe directly into your web app or into Salesforce, or really wherever you want to inject data. And I think embedding is such an important strategic focus for Sigma right now and will be moving forward. You look at most modern SaaS tools nowadays or software companies, they're collecting more data than they ever had in the past. And they realize that a lot of their users can derive a lot of value from that data. So most tools are starting to offer, analytics solutions that present analytics on how users are using your product and how they can get, more value out of your product. So That's really important for Sigma. We really want to help our customers create those analytics offerings that they can provide to their customers, either monetized or free.
Well, so a question that I have, and it's a question that we ask of pretty much everybody, is given the spectrum of solutions that are out there and the spectrum of solutions that a lot of companies have already implemented. I know you mentioned early on, Zach, that this can be a complementary solution. Talk a little bit about that. I mean, where do you see yourselves fitting in to folks that already have a lot of pieces in place and a lot of moving parts?
Yeah, when it comes to complementary, within the BI space, people have been talking about ad hoc or self-service so long that I think the well's a little poisoned in terms of messaging that way. But when you do need an actual self-service platform that doesn't require going back to somebody else with more technical expertise to answer those questions that come up in a meeting, that's where Sigma can fit in. So real ad hoc exploration on large data sets to complement your traditional reporting is where we fit in those organizations.
And so where are you finding, let's get right down into the consideration cycle here. Where are you finding traction? I mean, who do you end up, who would you encourage someone in the audience to be organizing with in order to engage with Sigma? I mean, who should be kind of in those first discussions?
Yeah, I'd say usually our first discussions, like within fintech, it's usually the chief data officer or more the chief analytics officer that usually is still looking for another solution to fill in a gap, where they have something that maybe they can run the business on. So they're more traditional keeping the lights on tools, but now they're looking for something that can help them build the business. So they're getting new data sets they want to explore within their cloud data platforms like Snowflake, and they need something to be able to rapidly size up these data sets and be able to make real fast data products out of them.
Well, and Dylan, to kind of echo kind of what we initially chatted about, what is the impact right now on this kind of revolution of data that's kind of impacting organizations? I mean, why is there a need for Sigma at this point?
Yeah, so I think a lot of it really comes back to what Zach was referencing a second ago, which is around the self-service capabilities of data tools. There's been so much advancements in back-end technologies and databases over the last 2 decades that now companies can store, again, billions and billions of records of data. There's a lot of value in that data, but a lot of times that value is really locked up with the data team. A lot of times these insights are only accessible to the folks that know how to run SQL or have the tools in place to extract that information. There hasn't really been a ton of innovation on the BI side in terms of letting any user, regardless of their technical sophistication, actually go in and access and find the data that they need. So that's where Sigma comes in. And again, it's by applying this very familiar interface, just a spreadsheet, to the massive scale of data that exists in warehouses nowadays. And that's really how you're letting your line of business users get in there and ask and answer questions for themselves and actually use this data to drive their everyday decisions.
We have time for one more quick question, and I need you to keep it brief, but it's an important question for a lot of folks, and that is, how does Sigma licensing work?
Yeah, sure, I can take that one. So super simple licensing model. We have a platform fee, and then there's a license fee for creators, but then all viewers are free. And that's something you actually typically don't see with most BI tools. So we want to make it as simple as possible for you to get valuable dashboards in the hands of your users, and we want to keep that cheap as well.
Outstanding. Well done. Well, that was a jam-packed half hour. Thanks very much, guys, for the time today.
Thank you so much for having us.
Let's move on now to our next featured solution, Decodable, an aptly named company, as their mission is to make streaming data engineering easy. As a serverless platform for real-time data ingestion, integration, analysis, and event-driven service development, Decodable eliminates the need for a large data team, clusters to set up, or code to write. This new approach puts the power of real-time data engineering in the hands of every developer, meaning engineers only need basic SQL skills to connect sources and data sinks, build and deploy real-time pipelines in just minutes, and easily manage those pipelines. And joining us from San Francisco is the CEO of Decodable, Eric Sammer. Eric, thanks for being with us.
Thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate the time.
Well, I can't tell you how happy we are to have Decodable as part of this demo day, and more particularly, how happy we are to have you as CEO being a part of it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. My background is more on the engineering and product side. So I come from a world of building high performance database engines, stream processing systems, general data infrastructure. And throughout the course, I've been doing this for, 25 years, give or take. And in 2010, starting with Cloudera, where I was an early employee, and sort of everything kind of after that, I've really been working with a bunch of data infrastructure, like the folks at Sigma were just talking about, data warehouses and database systems and those kinds of things. And every customer we talk to has like this ever increasing number of source systems and destination systems, and data is in different formats, and it's owned by different teams. And I think like over and over again, between Cloudera, my first startup, Rokana, Splunk, which acquired, Rokana, my first startup, and now Decodable, we have seen customers over and over again just struggle with getting access to the right data, getting it into the right format, and then getting it into the system that someone needs in order to make that useful, whether it's something like Sigma or whether it's powering real-time applications like fraud, waste, and abuse, or dynamic pricing systems, next best offer, those kinds of things in various industries like retail, logistics, so on and so forth. So we just kept seeing this problem over and over again. And I'll be honest with you, I just don't think it needs to be as hard as we make it. And really wanted to provide a platform for data engineers and application developers that were building these real-time platforms, both operational and analytical.
Yeah, I think this is what we're seeing as we've been covering these spaces for so long now. Is the first gen is, can we even do it? And second gen is, now that we can do it, how can we make it easier? And ultimately build tools that that really unlock the power of a lot of the technology, because I think that has been a limiting factor. I'm going to let you jump in and show this because it's an incredibly compelling solution. And I'm going to let our audience know that if they have any questions, to submit them. We'll hold them until the end. We'll save 7 minutes or so, 5 minutes or so at the end to go over some questions with Eric. But otherwise, Eric, the floor is yours. You have 20 minutes to kind of stretch your legs and show the whole Decodable solution. So I'll see you in a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I really appreciate the time, everybody, today. I'll show you just a couple of quick slides, just to kind of set things up, and I won't go into a ton of detail here. I'll just say that, Decodable is really built to be a real-time platform and power the real-time applications, like I said, sort of both operational systems, things that are customer-facing. Think real-time package delivery or customer analytics, that drive online product recommendation systems, ML feature stores, those kinds of things, and also offline or back office type stuff on the analytical data plane, so the data warehouse, data lakes, and any internal data infrastructure that is powering, decision making or offline model training and all those other kinds of systems. And fundamentally, at our core, what Decodable is really all about is providing that full feature platform. For us, that means the ability to connect to all of the data infrastructure, whether they're operational databases like Postgres and MySQL, Mongo, whether they're event streaming platforms like Kafka, Kinesis, Pulsar, Red Panda, so on and so forth. We talked about data lakes and data warehouses, and this increasingly wide, diverse set of specialized database systems for serving things like what some people call real-time databases or user analytics or OLAP databases. So Apache Pinot from companies like StarTree, Apache Druid from companies like Imply, and Rockset, you name it. There's just like an endless landscape of really, really exciting databases to drive different kinds of specialized use cases. And that would include full text search systems like Elasticsearch and OpenSearch in that list as well. So Decodable integrates with all those systems and then allows you to process the data as it moves between those systems. And I think more so than just being fast, it really needs to be easy to use. And so it's really built for anybody who knows SQL. It's built on top of the best of breed, what we believe to be the best breed open source stack for real-time data. That includes Debezium for change data capture. That includes Apache Flink for high throughput, scalable, stateful stream processing. I'm going to show you more, in detail about this. It is a managed cloud platform, so there's no sort of setup, deployment. It comes batteries included, ready for you to be able to build these kinds of applications quickly. So I'll spare you any more slides, and maybe we'll go straight into a quick demo here. So what I'm actually going to do is switch tabs real quick. What I'm actually going to do is show you very briefly inside of Decodable. So I'm inside of a test account, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you through an end-to-end example where I'm connecting to multiple data sources, one of which is a Postgres database, operational database that has a product table in it. And we're going to insert a couple of records into it and sort of see, change data capture, sort of take those records, or CDC, take those records, bring it into Decodable so that we can use it for joins and lookups and enrichment of clickstream data. And on the clickstream side, just for the sake of simplicity here, I'm using a data generator that is outputting what looks like HTTP clickstream data that you might get out of any kind of REST service or web application, but it could really be any kind of event. It could be, package scan events. It could be purchase transactions. There's all sorts of, so don't think that it's necessarily just about clickstream data. So in Decodable, you can connect to all of the source and destination systems that you have. We have a bunch of built-in connectors. Like I said, I'm going to be using our data generator that's built in that you can play with yourself, and also Postgres on the CDC side. But we also include support for, like in the last presentation with systems like Sigma, whether that's powered by something like Snowflake or Databricks, with data stored in Delta Lake. It can also come from a variety of other systems. So you get some sample of like the kinds of systems that we support here. Here I have a Postgres connection that has some just basic connection information. So this is the extent of configuration. The host name, I'm using RDS in Amazon. Database table, in this case, I'm connecting to a products table you can see here, and some credentials. And that's really it. The rest of it we are going to deal with. So we've actually learned the schema from the database system. So we have, an ID, a name, price of a product, and what kind of stock we have on hand, and the last updated time. And in fact, in another window here, I have that Postgres database and have all of those fields here available. And so you can see that there's actually nothing inside of this database table today. So this connection has what we call a task associated with a medium task, and we're actually reading data in real time from this. And it's going out to what we call a stream. Today, it's empty because there's no records in the database. And you can see some lineage information here. I'm going to get into pipelines in a second, which is where you can express your processing logic and be able to transform, aggregate, enrich, join, all sorts of different verbs, your data there. So I'll get into that in a second. Excuse me. So what I'm going to do here is I'm actually just going to, I have a couple of different quick queries here. I'm going to insert just one row to start. And you can see I'm just inserting a PlayStation 5 record. We have a product ID, a price, and my update time is going to be now. Whoops. Oh, quotes got messed up. So this is just going to be a really simple record for us. Oh, all right, I'm just going to type this, insert into products, values, sorry about this. And we're going to say that this is our PlayStation 5, $599.99. We have 5 of those in stock, and it's updated now. So we can now see that we have our record here. And so if we sample, the preview, we can see that Decodable has picked up this record, and it has here this notion of historical values. So this is effectively a materialized table. So basically, it's replicating this data from Postgres so that we can use it for stream processing. We can also look at the underlying change records, where you can see all of the details. I think this is actually outdated. Yeah. So we can see all of the different change records, and these are in Debezium format. So for those of you who know Debezium, this is going to look really familiar. And we have this record here. And just to sort of show you that it sort of works the way you think it does, I'm going to update this products table. I'm going to set, I'm going to set stock to 4, and I'm going to set updated at to now, where ID equals 1. And it can take just a quick sec to show up because we're doing exactly once data processing. So this might take just a second to pop up, but the system's actually processing data, in real time. So now you can see sort of the change that's occurring under the hood with the different versions of the records. The current version is 4. It went from 5 to 4 in stock, and our update time changed. And so what I want to do very quickly is show how we can do things like detect stock refreshes. So here's where we're going to get into a pipeline, and this is where the interesting stuff starts to happen. So I'm expressing this in SQL. I have a pretty simple SQL query where we're inserting into our output stream stock refreshes, and we're using a common table expression, or a CTE here. Our stock changes, we're actually going to take the change data capture data that we have coming in from our source, and we're going to unroll it into the individual events because we want to actually see the changes that are occurring in that table. And that actually gives us access to the both before record and the after record. So we can actually see exactly what the old value and the new value were, and we get the operation. So again, if you're familiar with Debezium, these are actually the fields that you get out of a Debezium change record. And what we're actually going to do is we're going to look for cases where the after stock value is greater than the before stock value, and also greater than 0, just as like a quality check to make sure that we don't go into negatives or anything like that. And the interesting thing about Decodable is that we can actually preview what this query is going to look like. So I'm actually going to start a preview. You'll see that the system says it's waiting to receive results. This condition hasn't happened, so we're not going to see anything. But let's say that our stock value falls to 0. Again, we're not going to see anything because our predicate is looking for the case where after is greater than the before. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to say, let's say we received a new shipment of PlayStation 5s, and we want to trigger marketing campaigns or re-engage abandoned cart users or something like that. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to refresh the stock to 10 records, and we can see now that we received an update of product ID 1, PlayStation 5. Our before value is 0, and our after is now 10. And you can see exactly when this occurred. So, and I'll step into this in just a sec, but you can see how you can create triggers and event-driven microservices, and even product recommendations that are occurring in real time based on sort of what's happening with inventory and stock. We can also see quite a bit of detail in this, if we wanted to, in sort of different ways of being able to aggregate and process this data. But this is just like a quick example of what that looks like. This pipeline is actually already running. So what I'm actually going to get on the output side, our output stream contains that record. And so it'll continue to receive updates as they occur, anytime the stock is refreshed on any product, which will allow us to do all sorts of interesting business processes downstream of that. Next, I want to show you something simple. So this is just a data generator that is generating Envoy proxy data every 100 milliseconds. And so basically in our output stream here, you can see that we're actually getting raw text records, every 100 milliseconds or so. And these are unparsed. They're not particularly usable by anybody within the organization unless you really know about the format of Envoy proxy data. So we're going to make this useful for people downstream of us. And you can see that I have two pipelines hanging off of this. I'm actually going to look at this parsed HTTP events pipeline. And here, again, slightly more interesting, we're using a CTE. We are parsing using Grok expressions, which is just like regex on steroids, right? So we're taking, a bunch of different fields out of the record, but we're also preserving the raw record. So what we're going to get out of this portion of the CTE is a series of parsed records, and then we're normalizing those by casting to different data types and stuff like that. This is like your classic streaming ETL style use case, and again, preserving the raw value. So our output is going to be this normalized value. So again, we can run a preview real quick, and this will attach to the real stream in real time. It will show us this data as it's flowing through the system. So you can see that we're actually getting the right values out. You can see that our casting is working. You get a sense of everything that's included here. And of course, Decodable has a fully featured SQL engine. So for instance, if you mess up your parsing rules or something like that, and you get like the timestamp format wrong, which winds up happening to a lot of people, you'll actually see that, in this case, it actually still is processing. So let's see if we can do this. You'll see that we might not be able to parse any of those records. So in this instance, we have null timestamps. So you actually know, hey, my records aren't sort of aren't looking the way that I expect. And again, I have this query running, and it's producing its output here. So we have this, and you can even see that we have one more. Let me go back one, sorry. You can see that we have this output stream is feeding yet another pipeline. And in this instance, let's say that we wanted to calculate view stats. And so this is like slightly more interesting. So what we're actually going to do in this case is create a data set that is showing which products are being viewed, and enrich that stream so that it can be used in systems like Snowflake and model training, for understanding what products are interesting. And so what we want to do is we want to join that clickstream data with the product data that we are ingesting. And in fact, what I'm going to do real quick is I'm going to insert two more product records. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create product 2, and we're going to call that, an iPhone, and we'll create a iPhone case for product ID 3. That would be a very expensive case. Let's say that it's actually, I don't know, 2753. And so now our table has multiple products in it. And what I'm going to do now, so the system will pull those things in just as it did the other records. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create what we call a tumbling window. So every 10 seconds, we're going to group by the window, the 10-second window start and end time, the request method, and the request path, and then the response codes. We know whether or not that HTTP request was successful. And we're going to count those events. And we're going to filter for just the events that are product references and HTTP GET. So these are basically people viewing the products. And in this case, we filter out just the successful ones. And then what we're going to do is we're going to split that path and extract the product ID from the URL path. And then we're going to join the results with our product CDC stream, right? So relatively straightforward stuff. And then what we'll do is we'll create an append stream off of this so that we get a time series output. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to start from the earliest position in the stream. So it's going to rewind in time and pick up all of the changes that we saw. And then I'm going to run this preview, and it's going to take a second to fire up and start doing the joins and aggregations. And what you'll see is that every 10 seconds, we get a new set of records with the path that was requested, but now we actually have product information inside of this, right? So we actually know the product information, we know the stock as it was at that particular point in time, and when that product record was updated. So again, we're doing this all in real time. We can actually take this, and if we wanted to, we can write this result to any one of these syncs that we have. So whether we want to use something like implied Polaris with Druid or Snowflake, or maybe you want to index that information in Elasticsearch, that might not be interesting in this case, but we could also write that data into Delta Lake. And so here, like, you just specify your S3 path and then ARN, a role for us to assume, and we'll handle all the authentication information from that. So you can actually complete and fan this data out to multiple different use cases. And what you can see is that throughout that process, we've been able to create a series. Well, one, we have things like lineage information. So you know that this product view stats comes from these two streams. And we've made these streams available for anybody else within the organization to be able to use. So we can do all kinds of, powering of different kinds of operational and analytical applications. So hopefully this is interesting to you. We see a ton of use cases across logistics with shipping and receiving, think food delivery and location data. We see obviously tons of clickstream, retail, customer 360 style use cases. Obviously just ingesting data into analytical systems for business intelligence and back office reporting and just understanding what's happening in the business. Offline model training. So data science and ML engineering teams can use Decodable to be able to do feature extraction and build time series data, different kinds of metric data inside of feature stores like Feast, or maybe you're using Redis directly, those kinds of things. We can even feed this data back into operational systems so that people can do all kinds of really exciting things. So I'll sort of pause there.
I want to point out that folks should definitely go to decodable.co,
Yes.
and there's just so much information on there. Lots of resources, lots of documentation, lots of information, obviously, about products and solutions, and even a request a demo call to action in there. So with that in mind, while we have a few minutes, I'm curious who you want to engage with within an organization as an ideal, right? With somebody
Yes.
actually the requested demo lights up. I mean, who are you looking for? Who do you think is kind of the most appropriate people to connect with within an organization?
Yeah, I mean, so the people that tend to engage or sort of see the most value are either the technical architects or leaders around internal data platforms. So the people who are choosing solutions and building, providing this kind of platform to the organization, building this platform internally. And then, of course, like this typically is part of, like a CTO or a VP of data platform. It's typically like in that part of the organization. But the end users that wind up using Decodable, whether it's through the web UI or our DBT adapter and those kinds of things, tend to be data engineers and application developers. And the goal here is to make them self-service. I know we abuse that term a lot, but the goal is to make them self-service within the organization so that they don't have to, learn the low-level details, of things like Debezium and Flink and Kafka, if they don't have the time or the wherewithal there.
Well, and with regard to testing things out in a proof of concept, I mean, what can you set for an expectation with regard to some sort of a timeline around a proof of concept, or at least getting some tool set in place so that people can play around with it?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, we are a managed service, so there's nothing really to deploy. That's, I think, really, really exciting for people. So that typically means that you can kind of get up and running pretty quickly. We typically see POCs be about a week, a day of which is connecting to all, setting up the connections to all your data infrastructure, depending on how many connections you have. And then for anybody who knows SQL, from that point on, it tends to be really, really straightforward. I mean, you saw some of the examples of sort of what we've been able to do just in a short amount of time. Usually we've seen people build out a couple of use cases within that first week and be up and running and sort of, off to the races from there. At which point, they might open it up to a larger team to get started. Like you said, people can request a demo, but there's also a free trial tier. So you can actually just use Decodable today. You don't have to spend any time sort of talking to us, to get up and running. So I think that's really exciting, especially when coupled with trials of other systems, whether it's Snowflake or Sigma, some of the other demos that folks are seeing today.
And with regard to kind of hand-holding, I mean, self-service is a wonderful thing, but sometimes it's nice to have somebody who can kind of help them extract a little bit more value. I mean, what is the kind of that initial support structure look like?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we always have community support available to everybody, including those folks on the free tier, forums and Slack level support. For anybody who's engaged in like an active POC, we are more than happy to help out. So typically what we do is we create a shared Slack channel with customers and just be able to communicate back and forth and answer questions in real time. We sort of subscribe to doing everything in real time here at Decodable. So we like to be able to engage and just help folks out as they go through the product and hopefully they don't run into any issues. But typically sometimes people have a question or two about how to express a certain kind of business logic or something like that in SQL. We're happy to help out.
Well, this was great. Eric, thanks very much for that. Best of luck with the rest of the year. And certainly, as you grow, we'll be keeping an eye on you here at Solutions Review. Thanks.
Yeah, really appreciate it. Thanks so much for having us.
You bet. All right, we're moving along nicely. Next up is Bigeye, a data observability platform that gives data engineering and science teams the tools they need to ensure their data is always fresh, accurate, and reliable. As you're about to see, companies like Instacart, Clubhouse, and Udacity use Bigeye's automated data quality monitoring, machine learning-powered anomaly detection, and granular root cause analysis to proactively detect and resolve issues before they impact the business. It serves clients in a wide swath of sectors and is capable of broadly monitoring across tables and deeply into the most critical data sets, reducing the number of expensive outages affecting business-critical applications. And joining us to provide a deeper dive into the Bigeye solution is Sharav Garg, Sales Engineering Leader. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks, Doug, for having me here.
We have had an amazing lineup for this data demo day, and you guys are certainly a part of that. Before we get into what you're gonna show us, I'd love for you to to share a little bit about the opportunity that you've seen. You've obviously joined and are playing a big role. I mean, what is the opportunity that you see for Bigeye at this point?
Yeah, definitely. So actually, I've done a lot of different roles in addition to sales engineering, but about for 13 years, I've always found myself doing something related to data quality. My very first role out of college, I was actually writing data quality rules for a slot machine manufacturer because we wanted to make sure that the metrics coming in were accurate. And as you know, slot machines have regulatory bodies that govern it, and making sure your data is accurate is very much going to cost money if you don't do it right. So since then, I've done similar things at companies, helping PC manufacturers make sure their warranty data is accurate, their SLAs are met. Same with customer data. Worked at Segment, customer data platform for a while. And when I heard of Bigeye and the sort of this space developing into very focused tooling for data observability and quality, I just kind of knew that, I know this is a need that nearly every business is going to have upcoming now and in the next decade. And just I was super excited. And I just knew I had to come work for Bigeye and help our customers implement really solid data observability strategies.
Yeah, well, data observability has certainly been a huge topic that we've been covering here at Solutions Review. I know we're going to let you take over the presentation shortly, but before we do that, I want to set everybody's expectations about how we're going to go for the next half hour. So I'm going to turn it over to Sharav. He's going to present a little bit about the solution and the demonstration. Any questions that you may have for us and for Bigeye, certainly submit them. I'll hang on to them here, and we'll save a little bit of time at the end for a Q&A. Without any further ado, Sharav, I'm going to throw it over to you and let you go through the presentation.
First of all, thank you to all the viewers who are here with us today. What we're going to go through today is talk a little bit about why we have data testing and data observability in the market, what makes them different, what makes them the same, how is Bigeye unique within the data observability space, and how does it help your business? We're going to go through a few examples, but primarily we're going to use a dummy e-commerce company and look at some of their data sources and look at how data observability is used to make sure that as you're leveraging this data for your business use, how do you make sure that it stays clean? How do you make sure that it's accurate? Because any bad data can potentially cause a huge negative impact to your business. So jumping right into our example. So I have this dashboard that one of our data analysts built. It's using our Stripe charges data, and it gives me a simple way of learning, okay, what is the most common time period into which we have a repeat purchase? So I want to give this over to my marketing team. Maybe they want to use this to figure out where to spend their ad dollars. Maybe they want to figure out, okay, month 3 seems to be pretty common. So I'm going to go ahead and do some win back campaigns or send out coupons, et cetera, et cetera. Now, of course, this really powerful system often tends to be powered by this type of an architecture. You have your internal, external data sources. You have all your business data sources. You're pushing this all into your data warehouse where you're probably doing some transformation, some orchestration, and then letting that data loose in front of your business and data teams. Again, really common, really powerful, because now I'm a business team, I'm a marketing team, and now I can know exactly when I should react and attract repeat purchases. So all that is great, but often what we find is data issues occur all the time. So bad data in this case would be, okay, I thought month number 3 is the most common, so that's what I'm going to go for. But this doesn't really tell me if there's an inaccuracy or an error in the data that I'm potentially not looking at. And if I'm just consuming this dashboard, I often don't really have a sense of how this data is being collected on this left-hand side and how this data is potentially being transformed or looked at in the middle. And this is really where we get to see a lot of negative impact to your business. And often we see this kind of a picture where you have broken apps, you have inaccurate dashboards, you maybe have disrupted machine learning models, you're not really able to migrate your data without incurring a lot of pain. So that's not what we want, right? What we want is the ability to have this powerful dashboard, give this to our teams, let them use it to make really, really good, powerful business decisions, and not be concerned that some sort of issue occurring on the left-hand side is going to affect me on the right-hand side and lose trust in that data. So a common response we get to this type of slide or this type of conversation is, well, I have data testing already. So maybe it's as simple as, okay, just make sure that there's no negative amounts, because why would I sell something for a negative amount? And while data testing is really powerful on its own, and absolutely it should be done in whatever level of investment you're okay to make, but it really is mostly useful when you understand specific issues that you want to catch, and you want to catch known issues within your critical data pipelines. So in this example, it's fairly rudimentary. I'm e-commerce. I just don't sell stuff for negative amounts. I can put that in. But often you have much more complex use cases where you just don't know what the shape of this data looks like, what the schema of this data looks like, what should I expect to break. And that's really where data observability comes in. We want to track changes in the behavior of the data over time. We want to make sure our anomalies are detected. And most importantly, we want to detect and resolve unknown data pipeline quality issues at scale. So how do we do that? Let's get into Bigeye. This is the picture that I know I want to imprint in your brain. This is really what we're trying to achieve by implementing Bigeye in your organization. We want to make sure all your application data is reliable, your dashboards are accurate, your machine learning models are as fresh and accurate as it can be, and then data migrations become easy and faster and lead to faster adoption. So Bigeye is the enterprise data observability platform. And our approach is fairly unique in the market, and it's really threefold. So first approach, pipeline reliability. The main goal of pipeline reliability is to make sure you get instant global monitoring for things like freshness, schema changes, volume changes. It covers end-to-end your OLTP sources, your warehouses, your lakes, your raw files. And it's really easy to integrate into your code and development processes. Second, we have data quality. This is where we recommend metrics that you should look at on each field within your databases. Again, we want to make sure you can implement data quality checks as much as possible on day one of using Bigeye without having to know what type of data I'm looking at. Because again, nobody can know every single data schema and data table that exists out there. So we give you 70 plus pre-built metrics, and they are automatically recommended depending on the field and the data that we profile. So if you have a numeric column, we're going to give you a numeric autometrics. If we give you, or if we have a string column, then we're going to recommend string level monitoring. So that's the goal of this second layer. The third layer is really about, okay, let's have the same type of data shapes that we have in your data testing. So you really understand your super custom business logic. You want to get super deep, super granular with this, and really make sure that if you have specific data sets that you want to monitor, they're very critical, you can monitor those using Bigeye as well. And then lastly, all these things are really meant for you to have a really, really fast and organized workflow where we can detect these issues, both known and unknown, as well as you have a really fast root cause and resolution workflow. And to do that, and we're going to see this in the product walkthrough, we do have a machine learning driven layer, which is really built for this automatic anomaly detection, to give you lineage, to give you impact analysis, and to give you built-in issue alerting and ticketing. So that's what we're going to see today. Again, quick reminder, we're looking at this dashboard. We want to make sure it's operating correctly. And this is the architecture that we have. So just jump into our product. So when you first open Bigeye, you'll see we have all your data sources populated. Again, I can't stress this enough. Having your OLTP databases in addition to your warehouses and lakes is really important. And we give you a really easy way of adding these data sources. It's as simple as going to add data source, pick the one that you'd like. So let's say maybe you have another BigQuery warehouse that you want us to monitor. All you really have to do is give us your credentials. And these credentials are read-only, so we make sure that we're not, causing any changes to your data, as well as we have various ways of making sure we are deployed in a way that meets your security standards. So now I'm not going to do that here today, just because I wanted to make sure during the demo we're doing this very quickly. But even then, once you add this in, you're able to instantly deploy a lot of that, if you recall, the pipeline reliability type of metrics right away. So what does that look like? So I'm going to jump into our Snowflake warehouse. You'll see we have a bunch of different data sources and schemas that we all populate automatically for you. Of course, in most people's day-to-day, they probably only care about a subset of the data. So you'll see I have my favorited ones that I'm going to talk about today. So I'm looking and seeing, okay, my HubSpot raw data coming in from my pipeline seems to have some issues. So I'm going to dig into that one. So as I'm going down this layer, I click on my schema and I get the list of tables. And again, against those tables, I get a list of the metrics and issues that are already deployed. And so I'm seeing some issues happening on this table. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this. And let's look at freshness over here. So freshness just means exactly as it sounds, how frequently and how recently has data been uploaded into this table. So we're collecting, again, if you remember, anomaly detection and data observability is about tracking these changes over time. So at this point, I've only enabled this environment over the last few days. And so you'll see data going up to about January 19th. And the reason you're going a little bit back into that window is because we do allow you to backfill this data. So at any point, if you have historical data that we can leverage and we can learn from, we will. So January 19th was the last time I had access to this type of data that shows how often data is being pushed in. You'll see it tends to change over time. And as it's changing, you'll see at the bottom there, expected range. We are trying to figure out, based on your data, what is the expected range of this? So you'll see we kind of expect 3 hours-ish for this table, and there definitely have been delays. So if I look at February 19th, data was 40 hours late. Now this data is being pushed into Stitch. So I go over and I say, okay, February 18, subscription changes, what happened? According to Stitch, no loads occur on that date. So I go ahead and go to my extraction logs and say, okay, replicated 0 records from this endpoint. Makes sense. This table doesn't change as often as some of the other ones. So hence, as our bounds are being calculated, we're going to continue to adapt to this data set. Now, again, this has been running only for a little bit of time, and I created a very small backfill window so you understand the impact of that. Later on in this demo, we're going to see a much larger backfill window, and you'll see the benefit of that. So I'm going to switch over to another environment that we keep running over time. Same exact data source, same exact pipeline. And you'll see here, similar looking data goes back a little bit further, goes back as far as December 22nd. And you'll see our machine learning anomaly detection is starting to adapt. It's starting to figure out, okay, in general, I'm only going to expect data to come in every 2 days. Now, this is really useful because we want to make sure that you are able to rely on our anomaly detection to make all these decisions for you, versus going through hundreds or thousands or tens of thousands of tables and making sure that you're able to manually set thresholds for every single thing. That is something that we just don't have time to do, or we notice that most data teams don't have time to do. So that's really the value of this. But also, if you look at another table within this other environment that we're in this case, the context table, which does change quite often, you'll see we actually computed the expected range to be under 25 minutes. So if data doesn't show up then, we'll go ahead and warn you, and you'll be able to react to that. Now, the way you react to that is really through our notification system. So you can configure emails that you want to send notifications to, Slack channels, and even webhooks. And webhooks are commonly used to push these types of notifications into your ticketing systems like Jira, Opsgenie, or even we have pre-built integrations with data catalogs like Elation, where you can make sure everybody understands that there's something potentially going on with the data set that we're operating on. Now, in my particular case, I come back, I've already checked Stitch, if you remember, and I know this data is not really expected to show up. Of course, the system will catch up. So I'll go ahead and go to my issue that was created, and I'll go ahead and say, let's mute this for 1 week. I don't really need to be warned about this every single time. Let the system catch up. But as I'm kind of going through this, let's acclimate ourselves a little bit, what we show you in these issues. So of course, we show you the charts that are relevant to you. We'll show you debug queries. So debug queries are really important for you to understand and go troubleshoot on your own as well as to what is going wrong. So you'll be able to copy this, run it directly against your Snowflake or your other databases and see what's happening. But we also give you lineage. Now in this particular case, you're looking at this going, well, there's no lineage. And what that really means is this table is not getting used at all. And so not only is the data fine, but this is not really getting used. So that's why muting really important, because it helps us learn. It's really important to also come in and tell us when things are good. When do you want us to maintain these thresholds, and when do you want us to adapt? In this case, I'm going to adapt because, again, I know this is a issue that I don't need. So going back to my issues table, there's a bunch. We assign priorities according to some computations that we do internally. But how do we really figure out what do I need to focus on? So I'm going to go back to catalog. I'm going to go back to our BI tools. You'll see we have Tableau here already connected. We have a bunch of dashboards that are being populated automatically. If you remember, again, Stripe cohort analysis is the one we're working on. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this. Let's go ahead and zoom out. And now you'll see there's a bunch of lineage. There's Stripe data being pushed through from my raw tables to my staging tables to my DUT transformations all the way through, as well as I have my HubSpot data being pushed through as well. So I'm going to go ahead. Let's click on Stripe Daily Overview. And looks like there's some issue occurring. So let's figure out what's going on. So my total gross transaction amount, the max is alerting. Let's zoom out a bit. So remember, backfill windows help us learn historical data. And the more historical data we have, the more ready we are on day one to tell you exactly what might be going on with your data. So in this particular case, I have about 90 days worth of backfill, a little bit longer than the one we saw previously. And we figured out in this historical data that the pattern is approximately on the 21st of every month, I'm an e-commerce company and my sales spike. This has been happening for about 3 months. So what I'm going to make sure is that my gray bounds here that you're seeing, again, they're being automatically computed using my machine learning driven platform. They are actually adapting to this. Again, we want to make sure that you do not need to know that there's seasonality in your data for you to figure out that there's something wrong with it. That's the main separation that we want to create, because that is the reality of most data teams out there. Is somebody who's responsible for building this dashboard is not necessarily the person who's going to understand every single aspect of the data platform. So we're coming through this, and we get to about the 21st of this month, and it says, oh, I was expecting a spike. It never happened. What is going on? So let's go ahead and look at this. So a few options. You could be the person who's responsible to just notify people, in which case, if you remember, we can just go in and create notifications. But you could be the person who's actually responsible for fixing this issue and figuring out the root cause. So what I'm going to show you over the next couple of minutes is how you might go about doing that using Bigeye, where it's only going to take me a few minutes to figure out what exactly is going on, versus me manually going around all these different data sources, asking people, asking other teams, getting on Zoom calls, getting on Slack channels, trying to figure all this out, which could take days, weeks, and all that while my business team is losing confidence in my ability to provide this data. So we're going to go ahead, go into lineage. We just zoom out again. You'll see now lineage is color-coded because we're in issue mode, we're in root cause analysis mode. So we're in Stripe Daily Overview. I have an open issue. I know my cohort analysis dashboard is impacted potentially. So that's why it's orange, it's at risk. And I see there's a couple of tables upstream of this that do have open issues and are definitely potential root causes here. So I'm going to go ahead and look at my charges table. and I see, okay, there's something going on here, another issue. So let's go ahead and dig into that. So false percent, it's another auto metric. Going back to our pyramid, this would be data quality because we have automatically picked up that this is a Boolean column, and hence you may want to track how many trues and false there are. Now, those of you who are familiar with Stripe, you know live mode just means, is this data real? Is this on my e-commerce website? Or is this data fake? Maybe somebody in dev or staging is testing it out. So instead of, in this case, using our machine learning platform, we're actually going to go ahead and go very simple. And I'm going to say, I have already configured the bounds to be 100%. This should always be 100% false because even one row coming in where this is true, meaning it's dev or staging data, is going to mess up my dashboard. And you'll see it's definitely not the case. While the data has been dropping, it is still not what I expect, which is 100%. So we know our lineage, we know what is being impacted, we know exactly what the issue is at this point. The one major benefit that Bigeye is going to give you here is under debug. So you remember our metric query lets you run these data sets directly against your database, but we also give you a debug query in this case where you can hit the preview button, and the preview button will tell you these are the 8 rows where live mode is true in the window that we're in. And now you can go in and figure out where these rows came from. You can go ask the application team and you can go figure out, okay, what has gone wrong here, right? So we've managed to root cause all the way up into my parent table. I'm able to figure out exactly what are the rows that are causing me issues. And now I can go ahead and figure out what the fix is, go ahead and implement that. And again, making sure we're taking full advantage of our Bigeye machine learning driven platform. We want to go back to our lineage. We'll go ahead and go back to where we initially were. This was absolutely an accurate issue, an accurate alert. So what we want to do is not mute this. But let's say I have gone ahead and put in the fix. I'm going to go and say close. And I'm going to say, please maintain threshold. This was a really good alert for me to get. So I'll go ahead and close issue, go to alert, meaning the 21st and the spiky period for next month is again going to tell me, hey, you should expect a spike. If not, you have missing data potentially, or you have bad test data coming in and your dashboard is actually inaccurate. I know it's a lot to go through, but I wanted to make sure I cover all 4 layers because they really are very important for us. And these 4 layers help you make sure that the deeper you want to go with your data observability, the deeper you can. But it also means that Bigeye is able to give you end-to-end as quickly as possible, as early as day 1 of using Bigeye. And these are the business outcomes that we normally see: reduced risk, optimized data teams, and driving of data adoption. And Bigeye really was born out of our founders who did this at Uber. We have customers, some of them are shown here. And we are, again, very excited about this space. We really think there's data observability here to really make sure that all the investments you're making in your data teams and your tools and your processes is actually going to be working for you and not against you. So that's our presentation. Thank you very much, everybody, for listening in. I know we're going to do some Q&A, so over back to you, Doug.
Outstanding presentation. Thanks very much for that. I want to actually hang on that last slide just a bit longer because I think this is an important point. It's certainly something that we're seeing at Solutions Review with regard to this category being, maybe one of the hottest ones that we're seeing right now. Tell me a little bit more, actually tell our audience a little bit more about why data observability matters. I mean, let's get right back up to the kind of strategic opportunity here.
Yeah, definitely. The way I think about it is over the last decade and maybe even longer, data has really become the core critical part of how you can run your business really well. Without that data, whether it's customer data, business data, third-party data, data sharing, you really just cannot handle a lot of your business operations like customer engagement, revenue forecasting, literally everything you can think of. And so what we see, every company out there is making a lot of investment in their data platforms, in their data teams, and their data processes, which is really awesome to see. I love to see that all day long. But where we are also seeing investments fail is when you have these unknown issues pop up, and either you are providing incorrect data to be used and hence making incorrect decisions, or your data teams just get stuck fixing issues all day long. So you're just firefighting all day long versus being able to actually act and operate on the really valuable data that you own. Data testing, again, has done really immensely well over the last few years. DBT is a great example of that. Great Expectations, another one. But where it just kind of falls short is when I don't know where the data issues might occur. And if you can imagine, some of our largest customers are operating on 50,000 plus tables across a multitude of sources and databases. If there is a person out there who can kind of manage all that in their head, that's, would be pretty awesome. But we just normally see like, your field of view is very small, and we want to make sure you're organizationally, you're able to view, is my data platform doing well? Otherwise, that investment that you've been making is not reaching its full potential. So that's why I think it's one of the hottest spaces. And it's just been really, again, good to see that instead of these sort of point solutions that have been used or build it yourself type of solutions that have been used, now there's a whole industry and a whole subset of the data space where we're focusing on this.
Yeah, and I think that's probably the next best question to ask, which is who in the organization do you best want to engage with? So there's obviously a lot of data solutions in some of these more complex organizations. There's certainly a lot of data. And they've been solving these problems, maybe ad hoc, a little too much ad hoc, but certainly without an eye toward maybe the inevitable complexity that comes from having all that data and all those point solutions. I mean, who do you want to talk to help sort out putting in a solution like this to kind of keep them, from those firefights that you were talking about?
Yeah, that's a great question. And what we want to provide is a holistic workflow that your organization can leverage. And so it does start at the very bottom, or at the very front lines where you are doing the firefighting. And that's really where that pipeline reliability solution comes in. I go in, I provide my read-only credentials, and we're able to just tell you right away if there are issues in just basic things happening across your data platform. And then we want to take that, and keep going further along with it. So now you have your consumers of your data, let's say your analysts and your data scientist teams, and making sure that they're not impacted because they are also responsible for providing the next layer. And all the way up to somebody who is running and managing a whole data organization where you're responsible not only for the health of your teams, your platforms, your processes, but also you're generally convincing people to leverage your centralized data platform in an organization. So all the way at that top, whether you're chief data officer, VP of data, CIOs, et cetera, we want to make sure that all this information that Bigeye is helping all your frontline folks with is actually rolled up into a more holistic solution where you have the right people and process, of course, but also the right tooling and dashboarding. So I can go look bird's eye view and say, okay, my issues are getting resolved within X days. My data is staying up, within the thresholds that I want it to stay up, and my data quality is up. So my users of that data platform are going to be, happy, and I can drive up adoption and again really make use of that investment that I've been making.
Yeah, that's exactly what we see as well. I think outstanding presentation. We would encourage everybody to go to bigeye.com. Certainly, we're covering Bigeye on our site at solutionsreview.com. Sharav, thanks very much for the time today. We appreciate it.
Yeah, definitely. If I can just make one last call out, we are having our DrakeCon virtual conference in April. If you're interested in any of these things, please do join us. We're going to have Kelsey Hightower from Google and Kubernetes talk about this, and plenty of other experts to kind of talk about data reliability engineering, which we think is going to be one of the fastest growing professions upcoming in this space.
Tremendous. Thanks.
Thanks, Doug. Thanks for having me.
Let's continue on now with our next featured solution, Prophecy. Prophecy is data engineering for the modern cloud era. They democratize the development and deployment of high-quality data pipelines, combining visual development with agile software engineering best practices. This allows data teams to focus on business value instead of technology and build complex solutions in a fraction of the time needed to write custom code or implement complex proprietary tooling. Prophecy facilitates a modern data mesh organizational style and line of business users, all while delivering on productivity, trust, efficiency, and integration demanded by IT. And joining us to take a deeper dive into the Prophecy solution is co-founder Maciej Spakowski. Maciej, thanks for being with us.
Hey, Doug. Really excited to be here. Thank you.
Well, it's exciting that you're here with us. We've been having a great Data Demo Day today, and we couldn't be happier to have Prophecy with us as well. And honestly, it's great to have a founder because you're really close to this, and I think you can probably answer every question that would come in. But also, you can give us a little bit more of a perspective of the opportunity that you see before we get into the actual meat and potatoes of the product. Tell us a little bit about why you decided to become a co-founder of a company to solve this problem.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll definitely do my best in terms of answering questions. But before Prophecy, I worked on quite a few different data engineering and machine learning products. Actually had another startup before this. Was really an avid user of Spark. And you know what? I've just experienced a lot of the problems that all the members of the audience might be experiencing today, right? I was trying to build like next generation, really fancy machine learning models. And unfortunately, the low level systems, the execution engines themselves just kept getting into the way. So I'm just very excited to be here today to show you guys Prophecy and how it's addressing the problem of the data team's productivity.
Well, you know what? I'm going to step out of the way and let you do that. But before I do, I'm going to set everybody's expectations around if they have any questions and if they want to send them our way. We'll take them here at Solutions Review. We'll set them aside until Maciej's all done with his presentation. And then we'll come back. We'll save a few minutes at the end and we'll go over those questions, some questions I might have, and then, maybe a few questions that come to me during the presentation. So, Maciej, I'm going to turn it over to you and let you take it from here, and I'll talk to you in 20 minutes or so.
Awesome. That sounds like a plan. Yeah, again, thrilled to be here with this great audience to show you how an organization can 10x their productivity through a low-code data transformation product. But before we do that, let's actually step back for a second and think about the challenges that exist there today for operationalizing of data platforms. So Spark is there. It provides you a really great execution engine and underlying system. But after going to market and discussing this with many different data experts, we found 3 different categories of major challenges, right? So first of all, there is not enough talent. As we all know, data engineering is hard, and currently to be productive and gain any insights from your data, you really need to have a workforce of super skilled data engineers. Hiring and training those guys is really difficult, right? We need to teach them about how the underlying distributed systems work. Second of all, collaboration between teams is really low. Currently, every single member on your team, or even between teams, is writing code that is very often duplicated. Making that code reliable and pushing it to production is difficult, and it requires a completely new skill set. The challenges of standardization and robust operational practices has been solved, though, by the software engineering teams, right? They have introduced the concepts like Git, testing, and CI/CD. Third of all, the teams are not flexible. Very often, there is a single data platform team that is responsible for productionization of your workflows and pipelines developed by analysts in business teams. That's clogging the productivity of the whole organization. And some companies choose legacy data tools to elevate some of those pain points. However, those can't handle the big data cloud use cases. But enabling your teams to be productive is not just about enabling the data engineers themselves, right? We need to enable all the different data stakeholders. And within an organization, there is plenty of different titles going around, right? You have your ETL developers, you have data analysts that want to be productive, and platform data engineers, and many, many other. They're all looking at the same problem from a slightly different angle, but the goal for them is always the same. They want to become productive data practitioners. So what do they actually need? They need a really good and high quality development and deployment environment. They are looking for a system of record, right? They want to know exactly, hey, where are my pipelines succeeding? How much are they costing? The observability layer on top of their whole data infrastructure. And they want to have a platform that inherently is very flexible. Every single different vertical, every single different organization, which will come with their own specific needs that they want to address in their own ways. So on a little bit lighter note, essentially what is happening today is traditional data systems are pretty much glued together using code and scripts. And that's like living within the Stone Ages. With data lakehouses, with low-code solutions, you can modernize your data stack like evolving into the space age, right? So it's like going from the Flintstones where you have to use your feet to propel your car to Jetsons where you can move with tremendous amount of speed and you're powered by the best engines. Okay, that sounds fun, but how do we get to that new era of Jetsons? Well, Prophecy provides you this low-code platform that is built on top of 3 different pillars. First of all, most importantly, we want you to be enabled on a productive, rich feature set on a visual development environment. In this whole presentation and demo later on, you're going to see a lot of gems popping out everywhere. Those gems are our sources, targets, transformations. And at this very first pillar, you can very easily standardize your whole development with those gems and allow the teams to reuse those abstractions. We give you the standard capabilities like lineage, search, data quality governance, on top of directly your data products. So that's great. That gives you a very complete solution. But at the same time, what's super unique is that this solution is built 100%, and it gives you 100% open source code, right? That code is super flexible. It's native, sitting on top of your Git. It has branches, commits, allows you to reuse all the best software engineering practices. It gives you CI/CD, right? So very reliably, you can now be pushing all your code into the production. You can be testing it, building it, and of course, deploying it. On top of all of that, the third pillar, we give you really powerful abstractions. We might not have enough time in this quick session to kind of walk into the details of that, but there are certain features like the App Builder and Enterprise Framework Builder that if you want to know more about, definitely feel free to reach out to us. Okay, so that all sounds great in theory. What about practice? Well, turns out Prophecy is helping out already a tremendous amount of different Fortune 500 and other companies to be really productive. So here's one use case scenario. We've worked with top 5 healthcare company, and we enabled all of their different data practitioners. Some of them had already existing Spark experience. Some of them did not. Actually, majority of them really did not have any existing Spark experience. We helped them to build a centralized set of standards and frameworks so that anyone in the organization could be productive. And all of that was built on top of modern data technologies, right? They essentially migrated from old on-premise systems to and modernized to the new cloud-based world. And that whole movement was done for hundreds of different ETL developers. And now they are onboarding thousands of business users and analysts on all the gold tables, on all the artifacts that those developers have created. And they've built thousands of different data pipelines over just a span of really less than a year, which is really impressive. Another really quick example, one of our favorite customers, Waterfall, they have this really interesting use case It's of course a little bit more on the fintech side. They have this really interesting use case where they've been trying to pursue this journey of data mesh. They've enabled their data platform teams already on our product on Prophecy to be really productive, and now they are enabling all the other downstream teams, the domain data teams, directly. So they have two teams: data integration teams, which are somewhat skilled in computer science, though they're coming from like economics and finance majors, and then they have the trading desk teams that their main goal essentially weekly is bidding on those partial portfolios and running analysis on new data sources. So with Prophecy, they've been able to really accelerate this whole process. Awesome. So enough slides and enough talking. Let's deep dive into some fun stuff. Let's deep dive into the demo of our product. By the way, for anyone who might be following this or listening to this later, everything that I'm going to be showing you, you will be able to also follow by yourself. At prophecy.io, anyone can sign up. There is a free trial. We all actually give you some basic compute to also get started with and try out the product. If you are already a Databricks customer, we are featured also on their Partner Connect. So you can just go on Partner Connect, click Prophecy. Click Prophecy and directly connect to the product itself. So really, really easy to get started. But let's go ahead and actually try to use the product and build a complete pipeline from scratch. We're going to build a simple reporting pipeline, but we're going to do all of that in just 10 minutes. We're not just going to build it, we're going to test it, we're going to schedule it and observe it running in production. So plenty of work to be done. So let's go ahead and get started. I actually have an already existing project. This project is just a repository on Git. It's right here. As we mentioned, we follow all the best software engineering practices. So you have your commits, you have your branches, and I can just load this project directly into Prophecy. It already has some data sets that I'll be able to start working with. So let's go ahead and create it. I can see all of the different repositories that are available to me on GitHub. So I'm just going to load my webinar example. And just like this, I am now connected to that Git repo, and I have this project visible to me in Prophecy. I have a bunch of pipelines that already exist here and some data sets that we can start leveraging. But for the purpose of this, let's just go ahead and create a brand new reporting pipeline from scratch. In this case, it's going to be a batch pipeline. But of course, if you do want to build some little bit more modern, even streaming use cases, work with real-time data, very, very much possible. And here we go. So this is our empty canvas on which now we can start building out our pipeline. Couple of important things to notice. Right top, I have my cluster connection. So this tool automatically here connected me to a default cluster. In this case on Databricks, but any Spark is very much supported. I can spin up a new cluster if I want, or connect to existing one. On the left top, I have all the gems available, right? So this is what we've talked already a little bit about. Here I have all my sources, targets, transformations that I'll be able to start dragging and dropping into the canvas and building out my data pipeline. And at the bottom, I have a little bit of Git information. This is something that all the engineers out there will really love, and we'll see this number of uncommitted files go up as we keep developing. So let's go ahead and get started, build out our pipeline. I can drag and drop my first component. We have to start with sources, of course. So let's go ahead and configure it. I am here gonna connect to a orders data set. I already have an existing table on my data lakehouse, so I'm just gonna use that. But if you want to ingest some files from scratch, connect to different warehouses, of course you can do all of that directly from here. The whole idea is that essentially any data source that is available to you from Spark, plus we have some connectors available to you, you can connect to really, really easily without knowing actually under the hood how it all works. I can just pick my Lakehouse database and connect to my silver orders table. Here we go. I can load up directly the schema from my catalog. If I want to, I can apply some additional business metadata on top of it, right? Maybe write descriptions, describe my columns, mark some columns, I ask PAI if I want to do that. And then I can just make sure that my data is actually loading up correctly. And so here we go. We can just look at quick sneak peek of the silver orders data. Awesome. So now we have our orders data loaded up. I can just drag and drop another data source that I would like to use. I already have this pre-created orders. I'm just gonna add that up really quickly. That was super simple. Perfect. Okay, so we have two data sources ready. Let's go ahead and start building up some transformations. First things first, I would like to join my data together. So I'm just gonna add a join component. It automatically snapped to my pipeline. Perfect. I can pop it up. And here you can see a transformation component within Prophecy. There's a couple of different perks that we give you to make sure that you're really productive when writing your transformations. On the left-hand side, you see the schema, so you exactly know what you're working with. And on the right-hand side, you can easily write your transformation logic. This is where you get an expression builder, and we show you all the available functions, all the available expressions, columns, and allow you to just type them out really quickly. If you are making a mistake at any particular point in time, of course, the tool will just guide and help you with how to fix it. Cool. So we have our first join component ready. And now I'd love to actually test my pipeline, right? I, of course, still have lots of work to do, but let's make sure that it runs correctly as of now. On any single one of the gems, there is a small play icon. You can just click on that and it will run interactively your pipeline up until this particular gem. Okay, we're processing here quite a lot of data, so this will just take a second, but I can keep on developing. This is a reporting pipeline, so I need to do some aggregation. I would like to sum amounts, so I'm just gonna pick my price column and sum them up. And I would like to do it for every single customer for every single month. So I'm just gonna pick my customer column and the date column. I'm gonna extract the month from every single date. That's how simple it is. Perfect. And just like that, we have our aggregate component ready as well. And I can see that my pipeline has already run. It processed quite a few records. I can deep dive into those samples really quickly, and I'll be able to see all my records, preview of my records visible directly here with some extended data profiles as well. So that I can make sure that there's no nulls flowing through any of my columns, and the basic statistics are there available to me, so that I can evaluate that there's, for instance, no data skew. After joining, now I can see that I have both my orders and customer columns all together. Okay, well, this was awesome. We've built some transformations, we've run it, made sure that it works. It took quite a while, however, for us to run this particular pipeline. Ideally, I should not be working on production data, but on some smaller samples. That's, however, a lot of work. So what I can do is I can just quickly limit the amount of data I'm working with. It's one of those really small perks that Prophecy gives you just to boost your productivity significantly. And now on a limited data set, I can just significantly faster test my pipeline. Wow, that was fast. So I have all of those rows growing really fast now. I can evaluate quickly what was coming out of my aggregate. So now we have essentially the summed amounts for every single customer per every month. This is looking okay. The data seems fine, but I would like to format this report somewhat better, right? This is not the report that I would like to give to my executive. So let's go ahead and actually clean this up a little bit. Well, turns out that one of my colleagues have actually already built a subgraph in Prophecy that is responsible for enrichment of your customers' data. What I can do is I can just drag and drop this particular subgraph and reuse their work. That allows the teams to collaborate easily and very productively. Now I can just run this particular subgraph and let's see what is going to be the data coming out of it. Okay, that was super fast as well. Let's see. And perfect, now this is looking so much better. So for every single customer, we have some demographic information, our amounts are actually now readable, and our months have turned into a readable format, English format as well. Perfect. So we have our subgraph ready. If we want to modify it, if we want to deep dive into it, understand how it works, really simple. It's all available to you within just a single click of the fingers. Okay, perfect. So now we have built out this transformation, this whole reporting pipeline. And as you've noticed, the only really skill that was required for us to do it, it's like understanding basic Excel-like functions, right? The second you understand those functions, now you truly can become a productive data engineer thanks to Prophecy. Let's just do one last step and finally write out our data to a final table. I'm going to create a brand new table here that we are going to overwrite on every single write. Perfect. And just like this, now we have completed our data pipeline. We can just quickly run it one last time and make sure it actually works. But Prophecy is not just a visual editor on top of your pipelines, right? Under the hood, all this hard work that we've been putting has been turning into high quality native Spark code directly on top of your Git. As you can see here, we have functions. Those functions, every single gem on our canvas turned into this function, and we can deep dive into them and understand them a little bit better. Some of our customers are telling us that, even if they came with no Spark background before, now that they started using the product, they're actually learning how the underlying systems are working under the hood as they see this code being generated for them really productively. Okay, perfect. So we have our pipeline. Let's now quickly operationalize it and productionize this. So in the last minute, let's just go ahead and schedule it and release this pipeline to production. So this is a monthly reporting pipeline, so we should have a monthly schedule. We're going to run it every first of the month. We can send some additional alerts if we want to. We can very easily expand on our schedule if there are any dependencies, maybe other data pipelines that we would like to run beforehand, maybe my cleanup of customers and cleanup of orders. Really easy to set that up. And now I can just go ahead and release all of this code to production. And this is where the Git manager comes in, right? I hope that everyone in the audience heard the term Git. It's really cool, very powerful. At the same time, sometimes a little bit difficult to use. So let's go ahead and see how Prophecy makes this really simple. We can see all the new pipelines and entities that we have created, commit them directly into our Git. And we can already see on GitHub also that now we have our branches showing up, merge any changes that any of our colleagues have created back to our development, and finally merge them back into our production branch. From there on, we can trigger a CI/CD process and release all of our code. And just like this, now with one click, we're going to be building all the artifacts, running all the tests, and then deploying the pipelines to production. Once the jobs are running on production, of course, we can start monitoring them also directly within Prophecy. So just like this, we have created a complete pipeline on top of Prophecy. We have scheduled it as well, and then a little bit of observability. Of course, there is tremendous amount of more to the product itself. So I would really encourage everyone to come and check it out. But that's about wrapping up the demo of Prophecy. Doug, back to you.
Excellent, Maciek. Thank you very much. And congratulations, by the way, not only on the fine presentation, but on just building a great product. It's got to be very satisfying to have brought something to the market like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And would love for, of course, everyone in the audience to go ahead and try it out as well. Super open to any feedback and comments from that.
Yeah, so let's get to that. We do have a slide actually that will show that shows how people can do exactly that. Start a free trial. There's a URL there. Certainly, we would encourage you to go to prophecy.io, which is the website. There's lots of information there, and certainly lots of ways for you to begin an engagement and start to find out exactly what Prophecy can do for you. Now let's get into some questions. So one question that I had, being more on the probably in the manager profile piece, how technical does a user of Prophecy need to be with regard to being either a manager or an architect or an end user? I mean, can you break that down for us?
Yeah, absolutely. That's actually a really good question. It touches upon the slide that I was showing a little bit earlier. We essentially want to make the whole data team productive, right? And there's going to be different personas. Some people are going to be coming with like really hardcore coding skills and they want to write their code. Some people are going to be coming from like a little bit more maybe analyst background. They know a little bit of SQL. And some, to your point, are going to be like managers, directors, executives. They just want to understand how well their team is doing, how well are their pipelines being executed, right? So you don't really need to have any technical background. You can just go ahead and start becoming a productive engineer directly on Prophecy. Really, the only skill is like those simple Excel-like formulas, right? You can write them, perfect. Now you can become a data engineer, but on Prophecy. But at the same time, if you do have any coding skills, you can also still leverage the platform because you can build and extend it, right? You can build those gems, reusable components, and this way you can enable your whole team to be productive. So that essentially we are encouraging as much collaboration between completely different personas within your team as possible.
So with regard to those personas and that collection of people that can engage with this solution, where in an ideal world do you want to land when you begin to speak with a company? Who do you want to be reaching out? Who do you want to engage with? Who are you finding traction with as you've been speaking with prospects and customers?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's been a very varied journey, right? Sometimes when we're coming in to engage with prospects, we're actually starting from data platform teams, right? Those are the guys who are essentially looking to build out the new architecture of the future for the organization. And in their heads, they're pondering, how can we enable all those other teams to be productive, right? So then we would start with a data platform and essentially help them out, build it out for all the other teams. That's one potential really good point of contact. But on a completely other end of the spectrum, sometimes we come into organizations and actually start working with business units directly, right? Where those guys are they have some data already provided, but they're just trying to get their job done quicker. And those could be actually even machine learning engineers, data scientists. We have a lot of customers where we started this way that, maybe didn't really know Spark before, just wanted to be more productive and tried out the product and we're like, yeah, wow, this is awesome. We can just start using it from there on. And sometimes even data platform teams later on got excited when they saw it. And they're like, oh, this business team is productive. How come? Let's give this power to all the other business teams out there. So really, it's very varied. You can approach it from many different angles.
So with regard to getting started, obviously we showed a quick slide of how to reach out and begin the conversation. What does it look like in terms of proofs of concept, how you engage with regard to that initial consideration cycle, and how soon can they get their hands on the tool to really start to extract value?
Yeah, absolutely. So setting up is actually really easy. Think about us as essentially an IDE on top of your existing data platform. If you have Databricks, if you have Spark, if you have Airflow, maybe some data warehouses running, setting up Prophecy on top of that is really just a few minutes. We are on Databricks Partner Connect. One click away, the product would just be set up automatically on public SaaS. If you do have somewhat stricter permissions and maybe you only install systems within your VPC, maybe you even only install applications within your on-prem environments, no problem at all. Our solution is actually super flexible. It's installed as a Kubernetes operator, and then 1-2 days of installation and you're all done. You can start leveraging the product and trying it out within your own VPC networks. So the install is usually really quick. And from there on, really, you can just start leveraging it and using it immediately.
Well, outstanding, Maciek. We appreciate the time today. We certainly want to encourage everybody to go to prophecy.io and check out everything that's up on that site, and reach out and start a conversation. These sorts of things are always valuable to consider, and we would encourage you to engage with Prophecy and maybe even Magic. Thanks very much for the time today.
Thank you so much, Doug. It's been a lot of fun. Thank you. Take care.
Thanks. Well, there you have it. That's Data Demo Day. We had 4 great solutions and really great presentations. We want to thank you all for your participation as well, for sticking with us through the whole thing. Until next time, I'm Doug Atkinson here at Solutions Review. Thanks for watching.